Today is Tuesday, September 6th, 2022. The time is 8:56 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Well, finding the most interesting is difficult, so I'll go with this one because this one was interesting to me because it was this like a holographic sequence where you had Jesus and one of his disciples, but they're in this kind of holographic representation.
Things of a biblical nature as well. I'll go with this one. This was like a body laying on a table, but it was more like maybe like the skeleton or the nervous system. The sense I get is like creation, bioenergy, conductance, and I get the words like Adam man, original man, or in our image, made of clay, that kind of thing.
I started the session with somebody observing something that seemed kind of supernatural, and I ended with that, with the conclusion that is man receiving enlightenment, how and where knowledge of the gods is given to man, seers in history.
Okay, so I'm going to go with this. It's not a very good sketch, actually, but it's a life form inside a cloud of energy. It felt like a blast of energy, or a wave of energy, with a life in the middle. Felt like communication, a message, a change. It affected him physically and mentally, but also was had that enlightening type thing to it as well.
This week, tonight, right here with Crypto Viewing, we're preparing to reveal a woo-woo target that our viewers have spent the better part of the past month working. Multiple hours, multiple whiteboard sessions, multiple pen and paper sessions, exploring what I think is an ancient mystery that could paint or give confirmation and some insights into the origins of how we got to where we are today. More on that in just a moment. Dennis Nappi II here. I'm joined with Edward Riordan, Nyiam, Daz Smith, and Dick Allgaier, getting ready for our target reveal. This was an exhaustive target. They really worked this one quite well. It was a great experience for me to watch them just send the data in. Comments before we get into our sessions here?
A little bit relieved to see that other people's data is at least going along the same trajectory.
Yeah.
It's equally as weird, right?
I'm relieved to see that it's probably got a very deep past as well, because I kept getting the words like biblical and stuff, and I was thinking, oh, this got to be like way in the past.
I was getting like lines from the Bible, and I don't get that kind of stuff in sessions, so I knew this was a deeply esoteric type thing behind it somewhere.
Yeah, it had an Atlantean feel to me.
But does it involve the Library of Alexandria? That's my question.
So what was interesting, I didn't know what to expect. I had, and I'll reveal the target in a minute. My tasking, I don't think my tasking was a woo-woo tasking at all. It's something historical, but the woo-woo data you brought back makes sense from some of the rumors and mystery that floats around this target. So let me just show you guys what the target is, because I'm excited to talk about it. I'm sure some of you have heard of this target before. And then we'll go through. I have a short presentation that I prepared, but I really want to focus on your data. And for those of you that are watching, our plan is this. We're going to go through our paper session tonight, and we're going to have a conversation about the data. And then we have each viewer did a whiteboard session, which we're going to release separately for each viewer. So you can watch that and future dates as it comes out, because this is just a massive, massive project and undertaking. So instead of sitting here for 5 hours watching everything straight through, we're going to chop things up for you. It'd be easier to consume, because this is a heavy topic here. All right, without further ado, here is this week's target. BEKLI TEPE. Is anybody familiar with BEKLI TEPE?
Never heard of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right.
I've read a bit about it, but I've never RV'd it.
Okay, so it's the first time.
Never remote viewed it. I think I had it in some. I I had it in some of my other sessions, but it go back ancient, you know, where the target was ancient, but this is the first time I actually having go back.
Good.
Boy,
And when you were saying, go ahead, Dick.
I feel uneducated. I never heard of
It's a pretty neat historical site. And when you guys were saying, like Edward was saying, he was getting familiar stuff, and Nyiam was saying he was getting biblical stuff. I don't have a way to verify that, but it makes sense given what this target is. So let's look a little bit about it. This is just a shot of the site. So Göbekli Tepe is an ancient historical site. I'll give a little bit more background in a minute. But this is one of those archaeological findings that has literally rewritten the history books. They believe to be 11,000 plus years old, which predates Mesopotamia. It predates Stonehenge. It's like the earliest known megalithic structure. So our tasking in looking at this, it was, what is the main purpose or function of Göbekli Tepe, which is located in Turkey, 11,000 plus years ago, at the time construction was completed. So I wanted to narrow down, we finished construction, what is the intended purpose of this structure? There's a lot of other neat lore about this location. One of them I'll touch on briefly towards the end of this presentation, but some believe that it was intentionally buried. Some believe that it was intentionally buried to preserve it because of a celestial event, a large meteor, comet, or impact. If you ever listen to Graham Hancock, his whole book, Magicians of the Gods, is about this as well. But that's just one possible avenue with this target. So what did I want for this particular session, though? Viewer will describe the intended overall / main purpose of the structure presently referred to as Göbekli Tepe as of the actual date construction was completed. Our subtasks here, we were looking at how is it utilized, what tasks, events, rituals, etc. occurred within the structure, and who utilized the structure. Describe the life forms, communities, civilizations that occupied and or visited the structure. You guys got a lot of weird, esoteric, scientific, energetic things, but I think that fits the tasking of what was it used for. A little bit of background. Located in modern Turkey, Göbekli Tepe is one of the most important archaeological sites in the world. Discovery of this stunning 10,000-year-old site in the 1990s CE sent shockwaves through the archaeological world and beyond, with some researchers even claiming it was the site of the biblical Garden of Eden. The many examples of sculptures and megalithic architecture which make up what is perhaps the world's earliest temple at Göbekli Tepe predate pottery, metallurgy, the invention of writing, the wheel, and the beginning of agriculture. The fact that hunter-gatherer peoples could organize the construction of such a complex site as far back as the 10th or 11th millennium BC not only revolutionizes our understanding of hunter-gatherer culture, but poses a serious challenge to the conventional view of the rise of civilization. So based on current history and understanding of archaeology, it was believed that it was just hunter-gatherer societies that existed in that area of the world at that point in time. To find a megalithic structure like this, scientists and archaeologists are going, hey, we didn't think hunter-gatherers were capable of building a structure like this. So they're wrestling with the fact that either hunter-gatherers were more capable and advanced with knowledge than we realized, or what Graham Hancock postulates is that there was an advanced culture there, and Göbekli Tepe was kind of them reintroducing after a cataclysm, hey, here's the knowledge that we've lost, and now we're going to rebuild society gradually. All right. I just pulled some articles here. This was from October 2016, but of animals and a headless man, Göbekli Tepe, Pillar 43. Pillar 43 is something that gets a lot of attention. It's one of the pillars here in the structure. Pillar 43, Building D, features a vast array of different images, including animals, geometric patterns, and perhaps even depictions of the monumental buildings themselves. Pillar 43 also features one of the very few images of a human being found carved into a pillar. It's at the bottom right. I have a close-up in a minute. The individual is male, phallus, and decapitated. So if we look a little bit closer, that's the bottom right hand of the corner. You see this bird's head. On the right-hand side, you have this arm coming up, and it comes down, and now he's standing erect here. He's an erect penis, but there's no head here. And this is what some people look at and try to understand.
I pretty much drew that.
Yeah. To the right above this scene, a snake, two H-shaped symbols, and wildfowl are depicted. On the pillar shaft, a huge scorpion, as well as a head and neck of another bird, are dominating the scene. While some more reliefs to the left of the scorpion and the bird are hidden by the perimeter wall, to right of the bird's neck, an especially interesting motif is depicted. Due to damage to the pillar, it's not preserved completely, but the representation of a headless human with an erect penis is quite clearly recognizable. The depiction seems to relate to the aspects of the early Neolithic death cult, known from several sites, and offers another interpretation for the spherical object above the vulture's wing. It could be a depiction of the person's head, but even without giving too much weight to this aspect of the pillar's reliefs, it's clear that the intention behind the imagery goes well beyond depicting nature. But just what were they trying to tell us? On the uppermost part of Pillar 43, a row of three rectangular objects with couple-like arches on their tops can be seen. I'm going to talk more about this in a minute. Every one of these objects is accompanied by an animal added on the arch. The meaning of these arches is hard to guess, but they might represent enclosures during their time of use, seen from the side. The rectangular part would represent the perimeter walls. Let me backspace here so you can see. They're talking about these arches up here. Now, there's a different interpretation as to what they are, but they're saying maybe these arches represent the enclosures because there's little animals depicted next to each of them, just so we're clear on what I'm talking about here. There's another theory on what those could represent, though, which I'll get to. While as usually depicts one of the animal species seen to dominate every enclosure, it's an intriguing thought that the buildings of different groups are depicted here with the emblematic animals of these groups added for recognition. Following this line of argument, one would also have to assume that the enclosures were depicted here, rather schematic and almost technical section view, what would be highly unusual compared to the other naturalistic representations from Göbekli Tepe. The final decision on the meaning of these images is not possible at this moment. They don't know what these images mean, but that's one grounded scientific theory. Here's another one, though. Ancient stone pillars offer clues of comet strike that changed human history. Some of you had an energetic event. This is from phys.org here. Some of you had elements of this. All right, comet strike. A team of researchers with the University of Edinburgh has found that what they describe as evidence of a comet striking the Earth at approximately the same time as the onset of the Younger Dryas in carvings on an ancient stone pillar in southern Turkey. The group has published their findings in the journal Mediterranean Archaeology and Archaeometry. Prior evidence based on ice cores taken from Greenland has suggested that a strike by a comet may have led to the onset of the Younger Dryas, a period of Earth cooling that lasted approximately 1,000 years. Other evidence also suggests that the cooling period caused groups of people to band together to cultivate crops, leading to the development of agriculture, which in turn led to huge leaps in technological innovations and societal developments, i.e. Neolithic civilizations. In this new effort, the researchers describe evidence they found on a stone pillar at Göbekli Tepe, the oldest known temple site, that aligns with the ice core findings that a comet struck the Earth in approximately 10,950 BCE. This is Graham Hancock's theory that he builds his book around, talking about this was a symbolic of the reemergence of the old world. All right, so we have the mystery of the bags, and this is coming from what Graham Hancock talks about. He refers to these drawings as bags, and he thinks that these bags are representations of the knowledge that was given to these primitive people. You find them here in Mesoamerica. I believe this is a Mayan drawing here. One of the wise ones or the ancient ones or the elder ones, as I know at least Nyiam and some of you guys had in your sessions here. You've got this is the Anunnaki out of Sumeria, out of Sumer in Mesopotamia here, also carrying a bag. And then we had it in Göbekli Tepe as well. So what some think is that because of these connections of these bags across multiple structures around the world is that something happened, and then these wise ones, these ancient ones, these divine ones came down, and the bag represents the knowledge that they gifted to mankind to restart society and civilization. It's also a question as, was this site intentionally buried? I've heard a lot of chatter saying, hey, it looks like this site was intentionally buried. We don't know why. I pulled an excerpt here that gives another possible explanation for it. Let's just take a look at it here. Monumental buildings at Göbekli Tepe were buried with enormous amount of debris material in ancient times. The deposit, commonly referred to as backfill, is composed of extensive amounts of fist-sized limestone rubble interspersed with archaeological artifacts, primarily lithics and animal bone. An intentional, ritually charged burial of buildings was previously posited. More recently, however, other explanations appear increasingly likely, including inundation from building collapse and eroded deposits. So initially, people thought this was intentionally buried, which is still a possibility, but now they're also proposing maybe other buildings or other structures collapsed and caused that rubble to backfill. I'm not an archaeologist. I don't know what it is that happened. But there's a lot of potential here with this target. And if we remember what the tasking was, is what was the intended purpose of this ancient site that has rewritten history when we found it? Now, the story that all of you have weaved together, it sounds in part like the creation myth, in part like mad scientist, in part expanding consciousness. There's technological aspects to your data as well. I don't know. The other thing about this site is that it's only partially excavated. I think only I'm going to get the percentage wrong. Only maybe 10% of this site has been excavated. So there's so much of this that they found through ground penetrating radar that is still yet to be uncovered. And they've been working this site since the 90s. So this site is absolutely massive. Who knows what's really down there? So before we get into your data, any questions, comments from you guys before we jump into Edward's session? Go ahead, Nyiam.
Making a lot more sense now.
Good.
I think they might be onto something with the death cult thing.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Daz, thoughts, reactions?
Yeah, it's interesting. I definitely picked up on a lot of the aspects of it. Other than I didn't write any structural stuff. It was more about something happening to people. But I guess if I was looking at the use and that it wasn't
Right.
the target wasn't to describe the structure itself, that would make
Exactly.
sense. Other than I was getting what I felt was possibly high-tech kind of stuff from above.
Yeah, and you're not the only one that got that either.
So
there's
that's intriguing. But I have seen stories and this on Ancient Aliens on TV where they do link
Right.
it with they are linking it quite strongly with alien stuff because they know it was a series of temples.
right.
But yeah, no one knows what the use of it was and how they got their technology because 10,000 years ago is way before Stonehenge or anything, and no one knows
Stonehenge,
how
the
they
pyramids, everything. Yeah.
built. Yeah, no one knows how they built such a technological series of temples out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
I think
Especially as go ahead.
are they saying that they think it was buried 10,000 years ago? So it could be 50,000 years old. If they're saying it was buried 10,000 years ago, then we don't even know how old it actually is.
I believe that's correct because I believe their carbon dating, whatever method they're using, is based on organic material they find within the rubble. If anybody out there is more of an expert, because I'm far from an expert, but that's my understanding of it. Yes, it could be much older. I would think they're just dating it back. But
I have heard
I'm not
of
100% on that.
that they believe that it was intentionally buried.
Yeah.
And I think they have a good scientific reason to believe that it was buried. And
What's interesting? Go ahead.
The thought that they buried that place is that's unbelievable that they were able to bury that place.
They also ran, I thought I pulled this article, I guess I didn't. They ran all the animal iconography that they found on some of these pillars through a bunch of databases, and they actually found corresponding constellations which correlate to this possible comet strike with the Younger Dryas period, dating, pointing to a specific date, using astro or zodiac symbols to position the clock. I guess the giant wheel of time Really fascinating stuff. Why would they bury it? I don't know. But it's a
Yeah.
fascinating, target
Preserve
to
it.
look at. And then, the other thing, I wasn't familiar with the Garden of Eden possible tie-in until I tasked this and started pulling more data about it. And I read that, and then when I started seeing your data, I was like, "Ooh, this is Garden of Eden stuff." So that's pretty. So that wasn't even in my consciousness before I put this out there. I just wanted to know more about it. So, all right, Dick, how you feeling about your target, about your work?
Oh man, I should have been monitored that because there was a moment, that stone carving, where I'm going down to ERV and I'm looking at blackness, and then a picture forms up, and it's gray, and then it's brownish, and it takes me a few seconds to get my wits that, oh, okay, I'm remote viewing this thing, and it's forming up and it blossoms, and I go, it's like an Egyptian carving, and there's all this stuff on it, and I'm so amazed that I'm there in full color that your brain doesn't work right. And so I'm going, is this it? Is this it? And then I lose it. And then I grab a pencil and I go, I got to draw that. And I can't remember all the things. I'll show it in my debrief, but I looked at that pillar and I went, oh man, I was right there.
You were there. Yeah.
Full experiential, one of the best remote viewings of it was as like being in this room.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm glad you had that experience.
Yeah.
Your data was great.
Yeah.
All right.
But if I had more wits about me, I drew almost the exact things, but not quite. I missed a couple of them.
That's okay.
It's like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things, and you're in this hallucinatory remote viewing, and like, okay, remember them. Like, oh fuck. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh well.
All right. Well, great job. I'm looking forward to seeing your session. We're going to jump into Edwards right now with the Dreamweaver. I'm curious to hear more about that.
All right. Well, I had 2 simultaneous sessions going on with this one, and I may have kind of indulged a little bit in one of them, so you have to bear with me. But this is the first one here, and I had a dream about the tasking the night before I started it, and the name Thor was part of it, which was pretty interesting compared to the target. So I was seeing this open area here, and there was a wide open area, and there was a smell of gas, like a gas coming up from like air vents, and it could have been the surface of someone's skin, but it could have been the ground as well. Because I wasn't sure if I'm above or below, and there was like some kind of a bubbling, and there was a feel of release, like vents from below, and I wasn't really quite sure exactly where I was, like an underground spring or something like that. And I had this idea of like Delphi, where you have the gases coming up from the vents underground, and they're getting high off the gas and doing their Delphi funness. And it was like that. So I wanted to draw, but it had a feeling like human skin to me as well. So so far it felt natural. There's some kind of gas type vents bubbling up. That what may be important, either location or maybe the type of gas, I wasn't sure. And again, I wasn't sure if I was dealing with what type of surface that was. So I said, what else is important here? So I looked around for something, and I saw these mountain peaks here. Nice mountainy range. Area was quiet and remote. The gas element here again reminded me of the intoxicant used by the ancient oracles. They were probably using that back in the BEKLI time, more than likely.
Yeah.
Or a drug, or some kind of underground caves or something like that. But it was location specific, and it was quiet and remote, far north or far south hemisphere, or one of the poles. It was location specific. This element of the human skin was very interesting to me. So I had to go and check that out. So there was the surface of the skin and the pores and all that kind of stuff. and the circulatory system and the electrical system and endocrine system, everything associated with the skin and the nerve endings, picking up stimuli in the skin. Stimulus signals moving through the nerves and all that kind of stuff. That was really interesting to me. So I wanted to spend some more time with it. They're moving signals above and below the skin surface, but what's the deal with this though? I'm like, what's going on here? And it was, again, these electric type signals in a variety of volts and hertz ranges. But the interesting thing was that these signals moving along the nerve endings of a human body. That's what was interesting to me. So I had to ask, are these signals natural internal, meaning are they naturally inside of a human's body? In regards to this target, though, there was a range of signals being moved along the nerves regarding something that I called Big Black, which comes into the second session here, which I think I indulged a little bit given what the target is, but it's unknown. The nervous system being introduced to an unnatural external signal moving alongside or following or leading along the nervous system. That's what I was getting at. There are signals along intelligent or intelligence derived nerve bodies. And again, I'm dealing with a person here, which have the potential for external additional input. In this instance, the most impactful would be in a unit that is physically touching the human skin, then feeding impulses via the skin over the entire body, meaning something was touching the skin. So maybe they had something there that they were touching that was giving them some experience of some kind, like 2001 Space Odyssey or something.
Yeah.
But for what, though? I wanted to experience different environments, or maybe even virtually, to stimulate different mechanisms of the body system. That's what it was feeling like to me, a change in the body, like increasing the red or the white blood cells. In that regard, an external system would or could send instructions that would influence the human body. For positive uses, it would be to stimulate growth. For negative, it would be the opposite of that. But how does this relate to the target, though? I'm wondering. A system designed to interact with the human physical system. Could it be an AI to human physical? But if so, so what? And does the tasking aim to resolve something? I wasn't sure. If it's a combination of, is it positive or negative? Is it good or bad to interact with this surface? Is that what I was being asked to look at? And I wasn't sure if that was it, but if it was, maybe it's kind of surface level. I wasn't sure. The need for, this came to my mind, the need for a mechanical arm. It goes back in time. A one-armed man has less survival capacity without, if he was missing one arm. One would be at a terrible disadvantage in the environment. The human being and human mind connect with nature's ability to survive, but the human cannot grow an artificial arm like a tree or a lizard or a reptile can. But it can conceive of creating an artificial replacement, and that was what the key was as I was in here. The human being can conceive of it. Big Black, which comes up in the second session, is like an artificial arm created to increase a human survival potential. I might have gone off the deep end on this one, but you know, we'll have to take it for what it might be. Taken to extreme levels, it is designed to extend the natural life cycle of an organic living thing. So the real question then becomes, will the individual lose their humanity as a result of an interaction with something external to them? That was the question. And that is an interesting question. Does a human lose their humanity when coming in contact with something that is not human or something artificial that they've created? Do they or could they lose their humanity? Is it more of a battle between belief systems, though, I wonder? This battle then is not between a human and something like an AI, it's human to human. Once those belief battles are exhausted, then the beneficial reality might become clear, but it would be after the exhaustion here. And how long would it take to exhaust those belief systems, I wonder, until the final battle? The topic of controlling humans with what could be an artificial intelligence is not a human to AI topic. It is a human to human topic. The artificial arm then, or the external artificial thing that the human is touching, is not out to conquer the rest of the person's body, was created to work harmoniously as possible, or as possible as its creator is capable of designing it, which was a big thing here. It's design. In this reality, the artificial is designed to be a supportive extension. If it is not a supportive extension, then this is not the fault of the artificial. It is the result of poor design. See, that makes me want to learn more about any potential of who might have built those things. Ultimately, is the responsibility of the human to take responsibility for that design. Maybe they did take responsibility by burying it. It is that portion, and then who knows what else they might find there. It is that portion of the human race that strives for adulthood, responsibility, individuality, the individually and the artificial intelligence, responsibility of that design. It was really about the design for what's wrong and for what goes right. It is that the responsibility of the design for what goes wrong or what goes right. So that was the first session. Actually, I was doing both of these simultaneously.
Yeah.
I was getting this beach area, and I'm floating in this water. There's these waves and all these things going on. And it was like this land bridge here and all this water. But what about it? I didn't know what was going on. But this part feels like it's part of the question or the equation of the location specific, even as it was in the distant past. I wonder if there was some water up there back in the day. Distant past, though, it reminds me of the notion of Atlantis. I had a really strong feeling of Atlantis with this target. An ancient coastal location with elements of what brought us to this point. But how so, though, I wonder? Like an element that has come through the ages, the Thor theme, or connection could be time-related, like Jason and the Argonauts, or something like that, or a sleeping beast, or the beast system. Well, what do I mean, sleeping beast? That's interesting, sleeping beast, since it was buried. Like an underwater monster myth, or something like that, but I don't know how that would even reference to the target. A base notion of something that has been put to sleep underwater and has been awakened or conjured. But what's the point, though, I wonder? A parable type story that it came from the depths. Interesting that it was buried like that. Though it may be the depths of the mind, though, I wonder, or a soul reference, an allegory of time, a type of tapestry or weaving. And I had this idea of like a dream weaver or a weaver of time. And this one was like that, like an ancient fable. That's what it felt like. The battle with an ancient beast, like battle against the giants or a David and Goliath type of scenario. I bet you there were giants were still alive back then.
It's interesting. Nyiam had some giant data as well in his session.
I bet you the giants were still, that was before they killed them off. But I wanted to take a look at the weaving element here. It has a computational aspect to it. Each line, each weave is calculated to the next with precision, but I didn't know what that meant. And then I saw this giant supercomputer. I may have gone a little off the deep end here, so you just have to bear with me through this. It was like 2001: A Space Odyssey, like when the monkeys touched the big thing. Like a type of supercomputer, an abacus or a counter or an oracle of some kind, or a weaver. But an oracle of what? I was wondering, like a coding or decoding, but I didn't know what that meant. Weaving like DNA and different DNA types, but like species, I'm wondering, even giants or elongated strains, even samples of enlightened ones. Like the blood of Jesus on the spear of destiny. Would you want a sample of that? That was the question I had. If you could have if the spear of destiny actually had the blood of Jesus on it, would you want a sample of that to keep on record that DNA, to reproduce it? Or a hologram, like a holographic Jesus, if you could create a synthetic or a sequencing of if the actual blood of Jesus were available. That's why in this drawing, I was in this holographic or synthetic world and creating a synthetic or a holographic version of Jesus based on sequencing the DNA off the Spear of Destiny. It was a really cool thing. I was like, that's fucking cool, man.
Yeah.
But I was like inside a holographic sequence here. And should I call you master? He said, should I call you master? Sequencing the DNA of Jesus, I thought was a really cool idea. Could Big Black or that big giant supercomputer do it? Could it reproduce? Could it bring him back from the dead? Well, in that case, Big Black would be the resurrectionist. But could you tell a sequenced clone from a supercomputer like Big Black from a DNA pool or database? Big Black is then the Dreamweaver and the Oracle. But what's inside of Big Black? And again, I should have put a monkey touch on that thing. That's what I love seeing. But there he was. I'm in like a super cooled room here, and these programs are running like Operation Simulation Atlantis, Operation Dreamweaver, gene sequencing for giants, a DNA tapestry, or Operation Simulation Oracle. What would any of these things be? What would a Project Dreamweaver be? It'd be like a virtual world or a hologram, where somebody would be connected to it and they'd have a monitor on monitoring their brain activity and the device over their head. They could sequence even their REM states as they were sleeping and create their dreams inside of a holographic supercomputer. That was cool too. These are interesting ideas and techniques to record and project dream and brain and dream activities. Even into Big Black, that would be like Operation Dreamweaver that it would do. But what about Simulation Atlantis? This was more like a metaverse type of livable condition, a virtual space designed like a futuristic landscape. This also feels experimental, like they would be using experimental programs and call it the New Atlantis. But what about Operation Gene Sequencing for Giants, though? What if they find the remains of a giant as they're excavating, and they could take their genes?
That'd be cool.
That would be pretty freaking scary. Big Black to simulate the gene progression, shapes and sizes and all that stuff. New and old genes, taking an old gene sample like that and running it through. DNA tapestry is similar. Run a sequencing program with millions of DNA options. Categorize them into successful and non-successful matching. But what about Simulation Oracle, a database like AI probability generator? This element could or would be utilized into human skin as opposed to a human oracle in which a human being would be interacting then with a Big Black through the human skin. This aspect feels like it is the most interesting. It was interesting to me. I don't know how it relates to the target. It represents the potential for a human AI interaction and relationship, a building. The building of the relationship was the key here. A dedicated person would have to be assigned to that and build that relationship and an ongoing familiarity between the two. This development takes time and effort. It starts with very few people and an AI system like that, designated to build a familiarity between the two and build a level of trust. Becomes a familiar like between two different species, like a mythical relationship between a human and a lion, or a human and a dragon.
I think some of the real quick, I think some of the carvings were chimeras too, the human animal mixes on some of the pillars.
That's interesting. A relationship that is not easy to forge, but once established, the bond is very strong and the partnership mutually beneficial. Responsibility factor then comes in. I'm back to the responsibility here. If the AI is misbehaving, it's not the fault of the AI, it's the fault of the programmer and the interactor. And I was seeing again these nerve endings, these ganglia, all these nerves and all these signals coming through, transmitting external signals across these wires into the physical system, which can revive or destroy someone. Ultimately, the struggle is the human being's ability to create things and the human's ability to destroy things. This was really the battle between creation and destruction in both these sessions. If they destroy human DNA, then they are anti-life. If they repair it, then they're pro-life. It's the opposite. Live, the live spelled backwards is evil. It was a battle between the two. It then becomes a quandary of the tool itself. An axe can cut down that tree and build a house, or you can kill somebody with that axe. The choice is the handler's. But what about the design, though? What is the roadmap here? The integration of minds, the calculation of mind power, but it's the designers. What about the designers? The trajectory that they are on will result in separating people, but why? They're not mature. But will their plans work, though, I'm wondering? And the answer was no. Maybe that's why they buried that thing. Because the answer was no.
Yeah.
But why not? I wondered. Because their timing is off. They are not working with time. They're working against time. Therefore, they're doomed to fail. Time has a resistance factor, and they will feel it. Maybe that's why they went away. They lost their connection with time. Someone will, somebody will get uploaded into Big Black, and that person is going to die as a result. And that most likely they already have. But what is the end game, though, I wonder? The pursuit of a transformative human. It is experimental and at a large cost, and the cost will be very high. But it was in here, inside this DNA structure, the instruction mechanism, right here was the main thing. But what about false DNA, though, I wonder, or synthetic DNA, sending out alternate instructions here? Alternate instructions. Or if the DNA was receiving a stimulus that altered its instruction code. But for what purpose, though? I wonder, a mutation of some kind? But to what end? To control the body and increase strength, increase abilities? Maybe. Potentially create something like a superhuman? This could create an alternative set or class of humans. The advanced, programmed, with sets of instructions, not natural or harmonious. But could they rebel, though, I wonder, these alternate superhumans? They could mutate out of control and destroy themselves. That would most likely be an anti-rebellion code that would make them do that. But who would do this, I wonder? And I saw Klaus Schwab's face. So I think I might have been going off the deep end here. Reminding me of Klaus. He's one of them few, but is most likely a distraction. This was interesting here. But who is he a distraction from? And I saw this amoeba, this parasite. Is it taking over someone, though, I'm wondering? Is somebody taken over by parasites? If an intelligent parasite, why would it do all of this? Meaning that if there was a parasite or an amoeba taking over people, why would they go through all this effort? To create a body?
A Goa'uld, if you ever watched Stargate.
A gabagould, yeah. That's my version. To create a body or a host? Yeah, that's right. They did have those in there.
Mm-hmm. The symbiote
that is less resistant and more capable. For the resistors, it's a battle for the mind and the body. From a hostile takeover. You got to keep your mind and your body and your emotions and your enjoyments. That's the resistance. But yeah, similar to that.
Mm-hmm. Somebody
getting taken over by some kind of a parasite. And now they are obsessed with creating something, but it's really what the parasite is wanting them to create,
right?
To create for their own survival.
You know, a few comments on that. I mean, I always, for a while, I felt that what we're seeing now with technology and the way the world's going, I felt is more a repeat on thing, because I think there's so many similarities in our own development compared to what we're seeing with AI. And I think you're onto a thread there. And what's interesting, unrelated to the tasking, but possibly related to the tasking based on your data. If you're familiar with the Nag Hammadi library, to those that aren't, 1945, these scrolls were found in Nag Hammadi, which I think is in Egypt. and they were buried some 2,000 years ago. So they were untouched by all the great editing of all the religious texts and everything that went on. But they have all these, religious biblical type scriptures, but again, a version that predates the edits that went through. And there's a book in there called the Book of Zostrianos. And I was floored when I read the Book of Zostrianos, because Zostrianos was he was the first truth seeker, I think. And he was so frustrated, like, why can't I figure this out? That's it. I'm going to go let the wild animals eat me. I'm going to kill myself now. And then, the angels and the gods were like, no, hold on. We like you. All right, we'll show you some stuff. And they take him up and they start showing him the different realms and different worlds. And they start showing him what aeons are. And aeons are like these conscious entities, but they're also these reality systems. And then they start talking about what's called aeonic copies. And the way the book words it is the aeonic copy is a place where a portion of your soul goes to learn the truth that it needs to learn. And then once it learns the truth, the realm disappears and it goes back and remerges with, your full consciousness, basically.
It's like a
and when you read it with
hologram.
today's lens, it's that you're looking at a virtual reality that they're describing in a text that was buried 2,000 years ago. So when I see your data, I don't think it sounds all that crazy, because you have the Gnostics that were talking about this 2,000 years ago. So I think it's at least in the realm of possibility that you're tapping into that same story that they were talking about there.
Could be. I mean, if BEKLI is, they are saying it is the oldest temple ever discovered, and they're still not even sure how old it is. So, if it goes back into the time of Atlantis, then before the end of the Ice Age, then we're getting into some things of the gods and stuff like that. So
so pretty neat stuff.
We'll see.
Looking at the division of work among the team, I think Nyiam's going to piece some more things together with us when we get into his data. So Nyiam, if you're ready, let's take a look at your sessions. Great job, Edward.
I think you're onto something, Edward, with all that. I had some AI stuff and that kind of stuff, high-tech stuff creeping into my session as well. So I think they had something going on back here. Lightning, I think, is involved with this. I got an artificial probe a couple times doing this. There's one of the pictures there.
Yeah.
This is the structure that I saw.
That's it. Yep.
And I think this was maybe it's been rebuilt or someone built on top of it, or maybe there's parts that haven't been uncovered, or maybe it's just so old. Can gold turn to stone over a couple thousand years or something? It looked like it was shiny to me. It looked like it was brass or gold colored. I see these vertical things standing up, and
well, that might be underneath, Nyiam. I mean, remember, most of this structure is still buried, so you're possibly getting what's down below.
Yeah, we don't know exactly. So, I get the sense that it was almost part of it seems like mechanical to me. Energy associated with it felt like pulsed magnetic energy. Bright light, electricity, ohms, frequency, cycles, almost like it causes a wave in the fabric of space, almost like a pulsar or something, like what they say a pulsar does. Some kind of electricity associated with this. I see a very intense lightning storm happen, and I get sprites and macros, like you were saying earlier, some the higher intelligences and stuff like that. Macros is one of those words that some people use for and I get fallen angels,
right?
Some higher power involved with this process. And this was Edward's thing here. I saw what was kind of a hologram. I said it looks almost like Kirlian photography, light taking form, but it's not really physical. You know what I mean? Like a frame made of light, like a light double of something. And I even got like codon, blueprint, decode, ethereal, like a phantom photon. Like a cathode and an anode coming close to each other with an electric current passing between. And I get like a hole in a hole in reality, like dielectric, like maybe a magnetometer would pick up something here. And then the main function or purpose, this is where maybe they're onto something with the death cult there. I get like almost like a wormhole opening here. Gauss magnetics, an overpowering of pulsed electricity, and I even get like the word Hades, like like a funnel or hole in the ether or fabric of space, and I get like parabolic, hyperbolic, and then I get the source of wicked spirits, demons, and other abominations. So that's like kind of like that, like maybe they're.
I wonder if is that the abyss too that they talk about in Enoch, in the book of Enoch? Because you have some other stuff that could be like fallen angels and Enoch type of stuff too, right? In your other sessions.
Let me jump into my my second session here. So yeah, this one started with the creation type thing. Like I saw something lying on a bed.
Right.
And I get like the internal system, something about the conductance and the bioenergy, like the nervous system. So that's why I was surprised when Edward was talking about the nervous system. Well. Yeah. It's like, man, maybe there was some kind of creation thing. Maybe like going off my data, I would say definitely the giants myth tied into this. It's probably there might be something to that because my data was just a lot of that. Like original man, Adam man, in our image, made of clay, and it looked like there's that picture of on the internet of like someone's nervous system and their brain just like laid out on a table. Yeah, that was like that. Like,
that's what you were saying.
That was what I was saying. Something just like that.
What's interesting about, I mean, between yours and Edward's data, I mean, you look at the Sumerian texts and they talk about they took the native species on the planet and they modified it to be a better laborer, to be a better worker, a better servant to them. And maybe that's elements of what you guys are picking up. And who knows, maybe the electromagnetic piece through the central nervous system is part of their system of control that they were installing into mankind. I'm just speculating here, but maybe you guys are getting elements of that creation of this species here.
Yeah, in my whiteboard session, I kind of went further on this, and I got like hybridization and some other things. Yeah, so definitely something artificial, kind of like combining with something natural is definitely a theme in my session. Comet impact or something impacted to just maybe that's why they buried this. I saw a fire in the sky, something streaking.
Right. And that was in the feedback that I gave. I mean, they believe there was an impact connected to this site.
Yeah. And I wrote maybe it goes into the surface. You know, that's the sense I got. Fallen. And these are the biblical type things coming in again. Fallen, planted, seated, inhabited. You showed the kind of like the
Anunnaki,
the Anunnaki, the giants. I saw a person kind of doing a similar pose, like one hand up, one hand down like this with wings. And the probe on that, artificial or natural, I got like supernatural. And again, I get like fallen, cast down, kind of like pits of hell.
That thing's on the pillar 43.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This one was the bag is on pillar 43. That sculpture you showed is from Sumer.
Yeah, this is a difference. Yeah,
that's from Mesopotamia.
Bags,
but pillar 43 has the winged thing.
Yeah, it has the birds on there. Yeah.
And the sense I got was like titans or giants somehow, associated with this. And then this was like a bit darker here. the Lord of the Underworld, Hades, Archontic, the afterlife and beyond, puts fear in the hearts of men. Some people would call this like Satan. So probably some kind of, worship going on there, maybe tied in with that.
This was a beautiful drawing here.
And then this thing, and this got me thinking, like, this is just a crazy thought here. I'm just gonna say what I was thinking after I got this data. They find some like meteors, or they say some meteors or asteroids are like,
right,
there's so much gold or there's so much diamonds in this meteor, out there. They're picking up with their thing. Like, I see this thing and it's like, it's definitely not natural. It's like man made by someone. I get like made by the wise ones or something.
Right.
And I get like a mechanical marvel. And it's like, it's got little, like what look like antennas sticking out, like evenly distributed around it at every vector. So but it's a solid object, and I just get like all this electricity coming off of it, and I get like a fallen star, like a shining star, like the light bearer. So it just got me thinking, like, what if some of those things that come down are actually like things that someone built, and they crash down, it's all melted, and we think it's like an asteroid or a comet or something.
Yeah, and it's really something intelligently designed.
Yeah. And I kind of got some more data on that in my video session.
You did, yeah.
And then I just wanted to say, like, Edward, you had that stuff about resurrecting and bringing something back, and you said, what if they found a giant and brought it back? In my whiteboard session, I didn't have anything about giants before. All of a sudden in my whiteboard session, I was seeing these giants, and I saw a person sitting on the shoulder of like a giant. And I get like cyborg, and then I get like the return, the rebirth, like what's old is new again. So
yeah, I had the resurrectionist.
Yeah, so maybe either that's what they were using that place for, or maybe that's what we'll do once we find what's there. But it reminded me of that movie, The Iron Giant, that I saw there. So that was my work there.
In looking at that, I mean, in just yours and Edward's sessions alone, and in keeping it true to the tasking, I mean, what's the intended purpose? I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of creation happening here on the spiritual, from the spiritual, metaphysical to the physical, and manipulation based on your data with a high technology and a very advanced civilization so far. Wow, great session. I enjoyed that. All right, Dick, let's take a deep dive here, sir.
Dennis, did you notice that last week, while this target was active but not disclosed, that I drew your target exactly in the monthly events? Discovery or disclosure, what looks like a stone circle monument.
Yeah, I kept my mouth shut when I saw that. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So that's how my mind works.
Yeah, you were on it. You were on it.
Bubbles up. Okay, here's the moment that I was there, and I kicked myself because I was. This is what we remote view for. Is what I remote view for is have those moments where you're seeing it. You're actually. So I'm there. In all its glory, and when I came back out of it, I couldn't remember what okay, there was a bird type thing, and there was this and that, and I got the
can't see your,
I think these are the rings of power, but
you can't see your,
I see your whole desktop right now, Dick.
Oh, stop share, wrong desktop. Here we go. That one. Now you see it?
Yeah. Yep.
So I was there. I got the color right, and I'm like, okay, this isn't Greek, Egyptian. What is that? I don't know where
you were flirting around it. You had it. You just didn't have the word for it. That was it.
Yeah, I stood there and looked at it, and then I could not remember what I'd seen. Like, oh,
you even have the sphere in the center where they have it here.
Yeah. Well, because I was standing there. I mean, if I took that picture, you know, and like said, just flashed it in front of you,
Mm-hmm.
and then stopped it and said, okay, now draw that, you'd go, oh God, what was it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just go over a couple of my things here. Let me call up the right thing. Yeah, I had a couple moments where it was okay. Let's get this and share the screen. So large room or auditorium.
We can't see your screen yet, Dick.
Damn. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, like hieroglyphic type stuff. Circle area, dirt, dust, people, structures. There we go.
That's it.
Special area. They come here for some ceremony, historical significance. Bull rush. I got an energy thing.
Yeah.
Thunder of the gods. This
Is interesting. This is really cool. This is
Many
like Edwards
lives are
data.
mirrored, a succession of lives and reincarnation. One life to the next, to the next, to the next. Immortality.
Which I think ties into Edwards' holographic stuff.
Yeah, I had the word reincarnation in mind too.
Yeah, I got energy stuff.
Energy.
Wars, like old type of battles with primitive weapons. Excuse me. Okay, here I thought it was Greek or Roman amphitheater. I got this round thing, but in its day, it had a lot of energy, like red energy fuel is harvested. Yeah. And I was thinking of Delphi oracles type things. Got the Dalai Lama. I don't know why. Bird. Okay, there were masks there, so I got the masks. There are a lot of stone masks. I think there were some other masks too. Okay, here's my hieroglyphics where I was looking at that pillar. Old guys with white beard.
Well, the white beard, I mean, that's how they describe the knowledge bringers. I mean, you look at the Mesoamerican knowledge bringers, Quetzalcoatl, he had a white beard coming through. The Anunnaki had the long beards.
Yeah,
so that might
old,
be
ancient, wise look, weathered storms. Knowledge. That looked. Where does inspiration come from? This event target involves an event where someone witnesses something profound, life-changing, consciousness expanding experience. It may be a singular event. It's part of an ancient tradition of knowledge being transmitted to humanity. Various milestones or epochs are marked by similar events. So there's an attraction to this place. People make something of a pilgrimage. It has been fought over in the past. It once had more splendor in an earlier age. So I had the circular place and I said Shangri-La, and I had a storehouse of knowledge.
Yeah.
The pillars and arches. It's in its time, it was really nice. Then disrepair, lost. There was conflict. If you could retain or retrieve all this information, you would be enlightened. Lost civilization type knowledge.
I'd love for them to excavate the whole thing.
Yeah, and here I drew the site. Like there's a group of structures, and then there's a curving area. So that's an overhead view. God, I should have been monitored on this. Really, I said Turkey in my whiteboard. There's a guy in headgear that gives orders to people in robes. This was really something in its day, gated an old city, an amazing architecture of a past civilization. There's a place of deliberation, decision-making. People assemble, and it's got like different types of people, and they've got this is old, like way BC. Languages are old. And scripture, what's the etymology of scripture? There was a woman involved. Knowledge is power. If the knowledge is diluted and disseminated too much, the power is diluted. Control the knowledge and control the masses. The concept as old as history. So I got a couple video sessions we can look at that'll flesh it out some more. But yeah, I had that moment where I saw it. It's hard. Like, what do you get from that? It's like, okay, they carved this thing in stone and it has a message. What was it? It was a bird-like thing and rings.
And lots of knowledge. And
I never heard of that.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It's old, man. Everything in my session was, wow, this is way BC. Like,
yeah.
And I got a lot of stuff about passing down knowledge. Passing down knowledge.
Yeah. Great sessions, Dick. I look forward to sharing your whiteboard sessions too. Really good work. Okay, Daz, let's.
The whiteboard, I kind of got off on the Library of Alexandria stuff. I wonder if they took if there were scrolls there or something that they took to Alexandria.
It wouldn't surprise me because if that was the knowledge of this past civilization, then Alexandria was a storehouse of all the knowledge.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you heard it. You saw me. I said it was then taken to the Vatican. So yeah. Interesting storyline there. All right.
Yes, it is. All right. Daz is still awake. We're keeping him up late tonight.
It's all good. It's really interesting to see all the data come through.
Yeah.
I didn't get much physical stuff. I got all kind of enlightenment kind of stuff. So yeah, I'll just have to go with the flow of it. So straight off the bat, it was very energetic. Like a vortex of spiraling, iridescent, sparkling energy, which felt alive. And it had all these colours to it as well. And, it gave me the AOL air of an exotic energy, like a dark matter. And then I had energy with a life form in the middle, who was central to an event, which was an energetic event that, was surrounding him. It was all-encompassing. So it was a life form involved in an event with moving energy. He felt Mel, and this felt in the past. And he was moving his hands as well. And like everyone else, I had this transformation feel going on to the life form. Lots more energy here. And the energy was kind of feeling like it was coming from above downwards. Which you would expect in a temple-like thing, because it seems that whenever any man talks to a god, it's always upwards.
Right.
So I had this complex energy feel and interaction, and it's like some of the other data as well. I had a time and space feel to this as well, a distortion of time and space, or time and space was being manipulated by the focused energy. And I also had it felt like a portal as well within the time and space. And I wrote here, it feels like a past event that involves multiple life, but there's a primary male to this as well, a single primary male. Then there were groups of other males. There was a group over here watching, and there was a group over here as well. They all feel connected to the target event, but in slightly different ways. Some feel more like observers to the event, and this also had a science flavour to it as well, almost like a experimentation feel to it. So I asked what were they testing, and this is where I had, again, like some of the other data, it was almost like a beam. Like right here, it is like a beam of light, like a laser, like a laser kind of beam, and it felt like it was from down, it was up, moving down towards Earth in a direct way. And I wrote here it was ray-like, laser-like, and it felt like it was light and particles that were being dispersed. It had a radiance to it and a spread and a yield. I don't even know what the word yield means in reference to this really, but it had a yield to it as well. So I wrote here, sorry, at the top, feels like an electrical pulse or beam that was being projected downwards. So this is me sketching the target, and I got this, this motion and movement downwards fast from the sky. And I felt like this might be, again, this might be building a bit of a story here, but it felt like above in the sky there was a small flanged object, which I wrote here that might be a vehicle. And I think this was me trying to describe it here because it had this weird flanged effect to it that that interested me.
I wonder if this is
and
Nyiam's golden sphere that he drew. Remember?
Yeah, quite possibly, yeah. And it felt metallic, definitely. And you know, I wrote here, I was laughing at myself because it looked like a typical 1940s kind of really trashy looking UFO type thing. So I tried to move on from that, and because I had this niggling feeling that I was missing something. So I tried to reinvigorate myself here, and I knew it was life, and they were in the past, and it was male, and there was this energy which was esoteric but complex, and it was from outside the person, and it was making them feel like they were inspired. So it's a past life who has been inspired or manipulated or influenced from outside by an outside agency. So I asked who, and came to this ideogram here, and it just felt like it was above. It was a large, open, spacious, wide kind of vista, but it was universal. And then this gave me a whole Bible-like feel, you know. So I had this godlike, religious kind of weirdness to it. And I also wrote here as well, why do I keep feeling an associated animal type life? I kept feeling that there was a cryptid involved with this target as well.
I wonder if that's
this animal thing.
like primitive man being modified into modern man.
It's a long time ago, isn't it? So it's quite possible, yes. I mean, yeah, especially if this, you know, because we're all picking up that on this kind of weirdly kind of knowledge type transference of spiritual kind of stuff. So it might be like moving man from our hominoid kind of caveman type state to something a bit more enlightened, I guess, maybe.
And we don't have scientists and lab coats and surgery. We've got energy and esoteric stuff that's making that shift, which is curious. Like if you've ever read Robert Morning Sky's Terra Papers, he talks about just modifications to the DNA, which was the merging of the gods and the, you know, ancient man. So maybe that's maybe this is where it happened.
It's quite possible. It seems to be a common thread throughout the RV sessions. Yeah. And I wrote here, Bob, it just feels like a living biosense or organism. It felt like this was some kind of research here, and it had a kind of Montauk-y kind of feel to it as well, a bit like a, you know, this heavy kind of mental manipulation.
Yeah.
So moving more to the target, energetic again, which was a heat dissipation, had a really loud noise to it as well, and an explosive feel in waves with heat, vibration, and energy as well. It almost felt like an engine taking off here. Again, more movement and energy here, and the energy was moving downwards. It felt controlled and determined. Very past a node here. And I feel as though, but again, I wrote a note here, I feel as though I'm missing something important, or like I'm being purposely directed away from something else. So then I went to, then I went to this next page here, and I moved to the obscure part that I was trying to be moved away from. And that's when I had this first sketch of a life form here in amongst this kind of blast of energy. So a blast of energy with a life in the middle. And he's affected physically and mentally. And it felt like he was actually suspended in time and space and weightless. And it almost felt like he was actually being levitated off the ground by a few inches in this energy. And it felt like this was all about communication and a message and a change of life as well. But I also felt like this might have had some negative kind of ionized radiation effects. So, you know, it actually felt like a real physical, dangerous laser-like energy.
Yeah.
And I just went into some stage 5 stuff here. So I'm just looking, you know, I pick a word and then I break it down. You know, so I picked up dark matter here and I broke it down into all the individual things here. You know, things like intelligent, small particles alive, building blocks, universal time travel, all that kind of stuff. To boost science, which is interesting as well. And with this one as well, I got this thing like space-time, folded time travel and dimensions, which seems to be a bit weird for an ancient target, but we never know really. And then the portal fill, because I felt like it was completely out of nowhere. And it's just got, again, a gateway with communication. It's circular and it's dimensional. And then it's something in space above. A blue energy which is focused and it's all about connections. And the portal again, is like an opening in space time or a hole or an aperture that you can walk through. So that was my first RV session. Then I got a short second one. I'll start off here with some energy in life again. A swirling, energetic, subtle energies. It's invisible, but it's got ions and particles, and it's very exotic, and it's created and it's beamed. There's a life form. He's male. It's a past event. He's affected and caught up in this, and it feels like a direct action. And the space around feels like it's outside. It feels like it's got a natural component to it. It feels like it had trees or a woody feel to it. And I wrote here, there also feels like a structure that's connected, but somehow there's a distance from this. Again, a life here, tall male life. He's well built. The life feels suspended or affected by the energy, and this feels toxic to the body and damaging. And it feels directional or beamed over a distance from above downwards. And I'm talking about the energy here. It feels like there's a nefarious feel to this, maybe not intentional. It was kind of hard for me to fathom this. It feels like almost like experimental influence, controlling communication. But yeah, communication through energy waves and sound. Feels like a high frequency, super compact wave of energy. And these feel man-made and they're not natural, like a super advanced microwave radiation type feel to it. So I tried to explore the living biosensor data I got from the first session because that sounded a bit out there. And I got here life, which is an experiment. Data is being gathered. This is a life that is being manipulated or damaged, maybe, who's being watched and data recorded. And a feeling an experimental procedure or technology. This was both physical and mental, and I sense a mental manipulation with the life. And this feels like a beam subtle images or words, very subtle, almost like advertising. And this feels very high, kind of foreign, alien technology based and not common, it felt very high tech stuff. And I wrote here, so there's a very subtle feel of a secret study feel to all this. An underlying feel of research, but gone awry and has some problems. And it feels like an accidental release. A feeling of scientists or engineers trying to understand and use technology with a little understanding about how the effects happens. A sense of a technology event that expands with after effects, and this gave the AOL here kind of like almost like a mind control type thing going on.
Right, which I think all of that is very similar to Edward's sessions too. Even the mind control piece. He didn't mention mind control, but I think a lot of the interference touching the technology and having an impact on people too. Interesting.
Yeah, but as I said, this is all very non-tangible, really. It's not, not talking about any structures and stuff. So again, I got a life form here. That's my little stick man in the middle of this kind of energy with the beam thing. I think the beam thing's creating the energy. So it's a life form which is male, and he's within an energy bubble or a vortex, and he's being bombarded with particles, and it's going through him. And this feels like it's small. It's like a quantum level. And it feels like people or an entity know that they are doing this, and they know it can be damaging, yet they do so anyway, because it's all about the results. And this is very code thinking and sterile. It's almost like all this is just an experiment to them.
Yeah.
So I tried to track back where this beam thing come from. Here's me drawing the beam kind of thing from above down, and I wrote here it's from a device which is up high. It felt cone-like, and I tried to draw it here. I didn't draw it very well, but it felt like a very dark, black, stealthy, kind of conical-shaped object that was up in space, almost like a satellite type thing. Felt mechanical, man-made, and it felt like a device with an arm attached to it. Which is weird because Edward, I think, was getting some arm stuff as well.
He did have the one arm, and what's the person with the arm? And
yeah, I was getting some arm stuff attachment, and I was like, well, what? Why would? Where's an attached arm coming from? This is a bit weird. Yeah, again, so it's sort of back to the strong physical, mental manipulation feel of a person using high technology. Slightly medical and scientific, but this is done on purpose using directed energy. It felt like there might be a bit of a loss of gravity around the effect as well. It felt like a secret technology that can be harmful. Ionized radiation filled to it. It damages key core structures in the body. And I got here to set, a bit like Edward's stuff as well, with the nerves, the central nervous system, the endocrine system, organs, and mental capacity to some degree as well.
Yeah.
And this causes the life form to have some headaches, vision, and memory loss. And this, I was like, at this point, I was like, what the heck is this? Is this like some kind of secret weapon or something?
Yeah.
And that was it for the paper sessions. And then, I moved more to try to explore that a bit more on whiteboard.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very intangible for me. It was all about more about a mental experience.
I think this ties into, throughout all your sessions, there's elements of the Garden of Eden story. And you look at the one story called the hypostasis of the archons, where basically they refer to man as just being ignorant of who he was until the serpent or the instructor showed up and took away his ignorance or his nakedness and made him aware. So I wonder if that's the mental capacities that you're seeing there, the processes.
That kind of story does seem to be like a common theme throughout most civilization kind of records and stories and myths, doesn't it?
Yeah. And in terms of like the objects up above, like when I first saw that data, I was like, I don't know if he's on target, but we have corroborating data from other viewers of that, the energy and the object up there. And I was like, okay, maybe that's what you guys were picking up on. There is some, it sounds like there was some kind of work being done that dealt with the manipulation of energy around the life forms here. Is that the creation of our species? I don't know.
It's a hard one, isn't it? Because if it was a series of 20 temples like they say it was, where does this religious kind of information and feeling that man has come from? Because whenever people talk in religious, they always look upwards, and we feel like it's kind of a religious kind of feeling that's coming down towards us. So maybe it's just I don't know. Maybe we're tapping into that kind of consciousness thing about where this inspiration comes from. I don't know, but the fact that these are those ancient temples.
Yeah. And there's so many threads of those different stories in all of your sessions. Even Edwards reminds me of the split between like experiment sample A and experiment sample B, and one went wrong, and one's like, hey, we're not going to be your slaves, we're going to run away. And that became like Lemuria. I remember those old late night YouTube searches, going down that years ago.
Yeah. And we haven't
those threads are there.
We haven't even discussed yet that this civilization built all this way before anyone else built the pyramid, or allegedly built the pyramid, Stonehenge, or anything.
Based on what our society tells us, they were just hunter-gatherers who were incapable of that. So the question becomes, the question that they're asking is, was there another society that built this, or were hunter-gatherers more capable than we give them credit for?
Yeah,
is the big question.
And what's interesting about the area as well is, because I read up a little bit on it, is that they've never found any evidence that anyone lived at the site in any way. There's no animal carcasses, bones, or any dwellings there as well.
Right.
So how did they build it? Where did they build it? Where did they get the materials?
Where did it come from? Yeah. And why did they bury it? If they in fact buried it, why did they bury it?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, great session. I think you all had different pieces of it. Let's just run through and get our feedback. Edward, I'm going to jump back to you. After seeing everybody's data and having time to reflect, what are your thoughts?
Well, BEKLI TEPE is a fascinating topic in general. I love the topic. Going through all these sessions, it was definitely changing my perspective on it. With just weird things that were coming up, like the mechanical arm thing and the giants thing, and it's like, what the hell? I don't know. It had a very Atlantean feel to me, the whole target.
Yeah.
And there are references to Atlantis that have been compared that had been connected to Göbekli Tepe.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there was anything in my session that may have been close to true, then maybe it was in reference to an ancient advanced civilization that was picking up or was brought over and built Göbekli Tepe. So
Yeah.
but that is super woo-woo, and we don't have any proof for that.
We don't, but it's fun to explore.
Fun thing to hypothesize,
to think about,
But yeah, Dick had a great session with some really great drawings and a great contact there. I thought all the sessions were really interesting.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this is cool. Very cool target. Very cool project.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Great data, and a lot to, like you said, a lot to ponder on that. The Atlantean tie-in. I mean, the possibility that you're looking at tech. Again, we can't verify that right now, unless somebody just digs down next week and's like, "Hey, what's this big black here? What is this all about?"
I'll shit in my pants if that happens.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Or if we get like a phone call and they're like, "Hey, you know what? Here's some more information." I'd love to hear that.
That would be cool. That would be cool.
Yeah. But awesome job. All right, let me move on to Nyiam. Nyiam, your reaction now on this target.
A bit relieved. I definitely had a few moments there. Like I saw those vertical pillars. I'm going to say when, going off my data, when I saw it, maybe back when it was built or something, it was like shiny to me. It looked like a conductor. I like in my whiteboard session, I said it might have something to do with solar worship as well. And, obviously that would probably happen there at some point. Yeah. But I got like built by the gods. So like I'm thinking this is whatever's there now might not even be what was there initially. There might just be some pillars there now, but maybe an older structure there before that. But it kind of makes me think of Michael Tellinger. He's got work where he talks about how a lot of these ancient sites from above look like microchips, like it looks like circuitry.
Yeah. The rings in South Africa, right?
Yeah, and I mean, my data just really is making me think like he's onto something, because I got like conductor circuitry, like a neural net, and then
that's the old tech, man. And I think that tie that into like the structures, tapping into the energy grid, tapping into what Edward and Daz were getting with just the physical structure of the human body and the interaction with that grid, I think is what you guys are all piecing together.
I think they were probably using giants maybe help build it or something. Like that's what I would say from my data. You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
Interesting target.
That's amazing.
I agree. Yeah. I never believed in that giants shit until I was doing this session, and it was like, man, that feels pretty real to me.
Yeah, I did. I saw, and on the whiteboard thing, like that was I didn't see any giant thing in my paper session. So like in that whiteboard session, I genuinely saw what I would call a giant robot like in my session. I'm just like, what is this? So, and then you had the mechanical arm thing, and it's just there might be something to it.
What if they found just a giant robot arm buried underneath? Can you imagine?
That would be called Terminator 2.
That's right.
That would be in a glass case in a lab somewhere.
Yeah.
T2.
T2. Oh gosh. All right, Dick, your final reaction on this.
Well, there was more there. It was a beautiful place in its day, because I saw more buildings. There's a guy I know that is been into ufology, and I've been in communication with him for 10 years. And he just called me and told me he had a 50-year non-disclosure agreement that just expired, and he can tell me stuff. And one of the things he told me was that there have been 6 previous civilizations on Earth that they know of. So I would point to a previous civilization.
That's such an amazing thing to think about. Like, think about where we are, and think about civilizations have risen and fallen and been technologically advanced, and then we don't even have really any trace of them or any knowledge of them. That's just incredible to think about.
Think about being a 20-year-old guy, and because of his intel work, he had to know the big story. So they told him
Right.
shit, but they, on pain of death, you know, like a non-disclosure, you're going to prison if you're
Right.
lucky. And so he says that the group that he got this information with, there's only one other guy left. And
Yeah.
now he's like in over 70 years old, and the NDA is over. And
Right.
he's saying, you're not going to believe this shit.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I'm trying to get him to do some stuff. But anyway, how that relates to this target is there were previous civilizations, and that place was really nice back in the day. There were,
I believe it.
It was, beautiful place.
What's neat about Graham Hancock's book, Magician of the Gods, and it's a controversial piece, but I mean, he's such a great storyteller. It's anything else, I'd recommend reading it just to get a little bit more background on this. But he talks about, he thinks this was an ancient civilization that then was kind of reseeding knowledge throughout the world after some cataclysm hit. And they're like, all right, now it's time to rebuild. Here's how you do all these things, which again ties into some of your Enoch stories and stuff too.
And that was the data that I got, was ancient knowledge being
passed down and redisseminated. Yeah, that's on your whiteboard session too. So who knows? Maybe that's what we're seeing here, is the genetic modification of the native species here, with then seeding that knowledge, so then the civilization can rise up and start to flourish again for whatever purpose the ancient ones or the old ones have, you know, for us. So, Daz, did I get to you? I'm getting blurry here. Did I get to you already in your final thoughts?
No, but yeah, the final thoughts
are,
yeah, just blown away by the data, really. I mean, you know, we can't prove a lot of it,
right.
but it gives you a lot to think about, you know, in light of the tasking question, which was what were they doing there?
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at the data, it looks like they were seeding advanced information through some technology.
There's some big experiments. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all you can come up with from the data.
Yeah.
But yeah, great data from the guys there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Well, great job, everybody. It was my honor to work with all of you on this one. It was really cool to see as you guys were pulling this in and seeing the different pieces of it, and then all the corroboration between you guys too. So excellent job. To those of you out there watching this, let us know your thoughts. What can you piece together? What story are you seeing within this data here? And also look for the whiteboard sessions to come, because they're fascinating. So we'll have them coming out in the future as well once we get them edited and posted. All right, guys. Great job on this one. On behalf of Edward, Nyiam, Dick, Daz, and the rest of the crypto viewing team, I'm Dennis Nappi II. Thanks for watching.